Hi everyone. Have you ever heard of the Poor Laws of England? The name of the law itself is Poor Law. These were laws imposed on the poor working class people of England, and there were conditions that the government would give aid to the working class people after their retirement, provided they were physically disabled. If they were physically fit and fine even after their retirement, they had to go back to their workhouses and give their service for several hours. Not only that, if they had children, even the children had to follow as child laborers in the workhouses. What I mean is, in Charles Dickens' Oliver Twist, he mentions about these poor laws where a little boy called Oliver Twist works in a chimney. So, when there was crime against a boy in the underworld of England, Oliver Twist surrounds around the underworld of the British working class. So, he escapes when there is an injustice, he escapes when there is crime against him, and then he makes a life of himself. Now, why am I talking of Oliver Twist here? Because I want to come back to Indian English literature. I wish to talk about Mulk Raj Anand's The Gold Watch. What Mulk Raj Anand wants to tell is, Mulk Raj Anand is always considered as the Charles Dickens of India because both of them deal with social issues very intricately and with a different approach. So Mulk Raj Anand wants to tell that when a question, social evil or a social suppression or depression or whatever comes in England, there is always an escapism from the protagonist. But when there is a kind of a social evil happening on the minds and on the surroundings of the Indian people, there is never an escapism, but there is surrenderance. So, what is good and what is bad? Whether you should escape a crime, whether you should surrender a crime, both are different things. But what I want to say is that the very culture of India taught us that we had to wait when there is a social evil. We had to wait for the good to take place on its own. So there was never a kind of a rebellion in any of our social novels written during the British rule in India. And today we are going to talk about this firm thing, because when we come to Mulk Raj Anand, we will be discussing two short stories, two literally different short stories where we have crime happening on the characters, where we have injustice happening on them, and what turn or what decision do they take when everything is going on them, and do they have a way to escape, and did they escape? So these are the issues. What I want to say is, in Mulk Raj Anand, most of the time the theme hits at the uncertainty of life. Okay, if you escape a social evil, what would happen next was also a question mark in the mindset of the Indian working class of those days. So again, I'm coming back at the beginning of the 19th century, when Mulk Raj wrote his The Gold Watch, and when also he came up with his Lullaby. So these are the two short stories which are often there in the syllabus, and these touch the youth because there is a certainty of life even now in the minds of our youth. So somehow surrendering to evil might have caused this kind of ignorance in us. So when we take up with this short story, we will be discussing that in detail. Now, talking about Mulk Raj Anand as a novelist, he was born in Peshawar and he was the son of a coppersmith. And then after having had his education in Punjab, he got promoted to London and he studied in Oxford, and then from there he participated in the Indian national movement. That is all there. But apart from that, what he wanted to do in life, not only write in English, but be a thorough novelist wherein even the British Raj would accept him and give the place of a literary figure even in those days. He was very ambitious in that way compared to all other writers during the age, because his main theme sometimes also is like tradition versus modernity. So he was with modernity, he was with tradition, and he dealt with both the issues very beautifully in his novels. But today we are discussing his short story, The Gold Watch. This is there for the syllabus for RCU students 6th semester. Now, the gold watch is nothing but it is very symbolic, and it symbolizes ignorance on one side and it symbolizes uncertainty on the other side, and it also symbolizes surrenderance. So what you pick at the end of the story is left to you. There is a man called Srijut. He is a poor man. He is working in a firm called Henry King and Company. His name, as I said, is Srijut, and that is totally a traditional name. And then on the other side, we have the one who looks after the company, Mr. Acton, which is totally a modern name. So each and everything is symbolic in this short story. Shrijut is such an honest worker, is such a loyal person. He gives his service to the satisfaction of his master. But then it so happens in the story that one fine day Mr. Acton calls him. They usually don't talk to the labor class people, but then he meets Shrijut and invites him to the cabin. He's so happy. He often thinks of a beautiful, dreams of a beautiful gesture from Acton, and that day almost he's being invited to the cabin. He goes there and Mr. Acton tells him that he has a beautiful gift from him that has been brought from London. So the whole day Shrijut keeps dreaming as to what would be the gift and why is it that Mr. Acton wants to gift him something. So he's so involved in his own world. He thinks that maybe there is a promotion waiting because of his good service. But there are many people who have been giving him service, and why is it he that Mr. Acton has chosen? So he couldn't wait. The very next day he comes and Mr. Acton is there, and then there are some very strange compliments being passed from Mr. Acton to Shrijut. He says, your hair has been graying. So what does that mean? Shrijut, he's getting aged. But then he was 50 years old, and according to the British law, a worker would retire at 55. But then why is Acton talking about his aging? He is invited inside, and then immediately there is a gift waiting for him. And what is that gift? It is a gold watch. Gold watch, he's so enthralled, and then slowly Mr. Acton says, I'm sorry, and I have to give you this watch as a compliment for all the service that you have given our firm. This is an indirect message to Mr. Shrijut that you are no more wanted here, because somewhere the management has chosen some other hand there, a younger person than Mr. Shrijut. But Shrijut was still capable of working because he was still healthy. But then what made Mr. Acton think that he was not capable of working anymore? So all of a sudden there was a law imposed on Shrijut that that particular day he was retired and he had to go back, and this is the gift in return to the loyal service that he has given to the firm. Now when he is going with the beautiful watch in his hands, he is trembling, he doesn't know what to talk. All these days he was waiting for a smile from his master, and his master has given him a beautiful smile. His master has given him a beautiful gift. But then what is waiting for him? And when he is carrying the gold watch in his hands, one of his friends comes and tells, Shrijut, the watch has stopped, it's no more working. Oh my God, the whole life, the very existence of Shrijut had stopped that day. It was very symbolic on the part of Mulkraj Anand to introduce a stopped watch there. Takes the watch back home to his son, and he's showing the watch. He's unable to talk to his wife, he's unable to talk to his son because he doesn't know what next is waiting for him. This is the kind of uncertainty that we have in all Mulkraj Anand's short stories. When he shows the watch to the child says, now that the gold watch has come to you, let me have your silver watch. So he suddenly wears it. So now Shrijut, unable to handle the gold watch, falls off. What does it indicate again? The whole story is full of symbols, as I told. It tells indirectly that somewhere Mr. Acton knew that he had literally retired mentally. Physically he seemed to be fit, but mentally he had retired. The trembling hands are nothing but the symbols of the trembling situation, trembling working conditions in the firm. So now, having broken the golden watch, Shrijut is not even sad, or he doesn't feel himself unfortunate, because he knows that he doesn't need the watch anymore because the time has already stopped for him. And the son who is rejoicing with the silver watch also has nothing to do, because when Shrijut himself is unable to feed his wife and child, he doesn't know what is going to happen very next moment in his life. So the watch, the golden watch, the silver watch, all the youth, the youth is indicated by the silver watch, and the aging conditions are indicated by the golden watch, are all a kind of a frustrating things for Shrijut. Shrijut accepted his retirement so meekly because he knew if that job is being taken from him, some other Indian is being given that job. The meek surrenderance that is found in Mulkraj Anand's short stories is not found in Charles Dickens' stories. In Charles Dickens, whether it is David Copperfield or Oliver Twist, you have very young people fighting against the injustice of the government. This is how there is always a kind of a comparative study going on between Mulkraj Anand and Charles Dickens as short story writers, and of course highlighters of social evils, and then how do they stand with tradition and modernism. Mulkraj Anand takes tradition and fights modernism. But wherein Oliver Twist, wherein Charles Dickens, we find that it's high time that the modernism should encourage the working class people to fight and to get their rights. So this is how we always compare the British literature and the Indian literature. So the Gold Watch is nothing but a kind of a story which teaches us students not to surrender these days. It was a time when we did that, but this is not the time. We have to seek our justice in our own way, because after the independence we had our laws which Mulk Raj Anand was not sure of during his era. So hope students have liked this story. Thank you.